Kind of do a little bit of teaching, liaison, various different elements to my role. And John has asked me to come along today to speak about open access books. So there'll be a kind of short presentation, do some demonstrations, and as she said, there'll be an opportunity to ask questions at the end. I'm kind of doing this from an angle of not so much more from the readers of open access books, not so much from those looking to publish, although we'll kind of touch on that very briefly. So what I will begin to do, I will share my presentation. Let me just get that up and running. This is where I ask people if they can see my slides. I'm hoping yes.
We can see
Excellent. Them. Okay. For those who do not know or are new to open access, down in the right-hand corner, that is the ubiquitous open access logo that you will see kind of popping up at various points throughout the presentation today. It's just a really easily understood and quick kind of visual guide to let you know when you're dealing with open access materials. So let me just click my way through on the next slide. So I'll briefly talk about what open access is, then move on to talk about how you can access open access books here at Aberdeen Uni, be that through the collections that we subscribe to, and then also tell you about where you can find open access books elsewhere, because there are a proliferation, that's not easy to say it 9:15 in the morning, of numerous publishers where you can find material. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So open access generally, an international movement within academia to ensure that people can access research that is being paid for, often using taxpayers' money. It's a moral good, it's an ethical good. More and more funders demand that any research that they are paying for is published and made available in an open access format. The focus over the last few years has very much been about journal content, articles contained within those, but there's now much more of a push towards open access being made available in terms of book publications, monographs, and book publications. The idea is that these materials are free, open for anyone to use, they're available online, and have certain reusable parameters within them, kind of within different Creative Commons licenses. So it's all about expanding the access to knowledge, therefore leading to more research and the development of human understanding, if I can be so grand as to say that. One of the real kind of core foundational documents that helped kind of set this up was the Berlin Declaration on Open Access to Knowledge in the Sciences and Humanities. As you can see there, it's 2003 that came out. It is now 21 years later, and we are still, a great deal of movement has been made over the intervening 21 years, but there's still a lot more work to be done, particularly around open access books. Yes, difficult to achieve, but getting there because there are so many different vested interests. In a sense, it's a dance between funders, researchers, and publishers, where people are trying to save money, people are trying to make money, yet also make the research available for all to access. As I said, focus has been in journal articles, but now it really has shifted to books and monographs as well as journal articles. Interesting that I've skipped something there. Within the UK, the Research Assessment Framework, the next one is due to take place in 2029. It's that assessment of research that is published within the UK. There's a consultation currently underway. I think it's due to be responded to by, I want to say, the 17th of June this year. And there's certainly a new mandate within that, where or expecting that there will be a mandate around open access publications in books and monographs. And one thing just to kind of highlight, here at Aberdeen University, we relaunched relatively recently the Aberdeen University Press, which endeavours to be an open access publisher. There are so many details on Joanna and her team's open research web pages that I would highly recommend people making an effort to go and learn a little bit more on there. Open access books at the University of Aberdeen, I would recommend that you use Primo to search. We can narrow any search results within Primo to open access only. There are open access titles available across numerous different academic databases, some containing multiple publishers, some just focusing on content from one specific publisher. One question that I tend to deal with as well with another hat that I have on, I spend a lot of time working on digital accessibility, not to be confused with just open access. It's about ensuring that while content can be made available freely and open for everybody to read online, has it been done in such a way that it is accessible for perhaps those who have sight issues? And technology is getting better towards that, but some suppliers are better at it than others, and it's just something we're constantly, as a sector, the library are always kind of having the conversations with publishers. And there are pieces of legislation now around to enforce that people are complying and making this wonderful online content accessible for everybody to access. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to do a little bit of a demonstration on Primo, just to give you an understanding. I'm now hoping that Primo will be popping up on your screen. So Primo is the university's catalogue, the way of accessing not only our print materials, but our online content. I'm just going to sign in. It's logged me in because I was in earlier on. Now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to do a couple of searches. I'm going to just do a very broad search to begin with. So I'm going to look what books that we maybe have in open access, historical books on Vikings. So I just narrow my search to Books Plus. This is the way I kind of prefer to do my searching within Primo. I often start very broad, and then I can start to kind of narrow things down. So I'm hoping if I come in here, so of the 698 results, it's actually saying 628 of them are books. I'm going to apply that filter. And then I'm interested, out of those 628, how many are available just as open access? Just to get a sense of the scale. Oh, that's not so good. I only got 2 results. I thought I got a lot more when I did this yesterday. That's always the danger of doing things live. Let me just come back. Available online. Save that then. Then try open access. Did this yesterday, got a lot more results. But there you can see the open access icon. You'll see that in any search results. If you spot that open access icon, lets us know. So if I come through and look at this title, what's very interesting here, get some more information about the book, but you'll see that there's a whole host of different places that this book is actually available from different, so this is an online directory of open access books. Again, an open access directory, a publisher's site, and an aggregator that we have. It does not matter which of the options you select, they will take you through. You will still be seeing the same content. You'll often see this when you're looking up the open access content. I'm going to do one more search, changing the subject. Medicine and COVID. see what comes up that way. So again, I'm going to narrow things by resource type just to books. Then if I can already see there's some open access content appearing there. Apply the filter. So 619 results down to 11. So in a sense, that's a good understanding that not everything is open access, but the drive is certainly going in that direction. And I would imagine we did this search next year, there will be an increasing number of books available in open access format. So let me just go and have a look at this title. And again, I'm getting it from, I will come back to the directory of open access books later on. Here we can then see, but let me actually, I'm going to click on that and go through. Just slowly loading up. Here I can see the item. Take me through. And there I can download PDF section by section of particular areas that I'm interested in. See, it's actually coming up Elgar Online, so that's the publisher. So it's actually taken me from DOAB. It actually took me across to the actual publisher's site. You know, there's one of the issues I'll come to is it's about trying to link up. There are so many publishers and it can be a little disparate at the moment in terms of being able to access content. That's why there's a lot of initiatives that I'll come to in terms of how to pull all this content together and make it simpler for the user to access that open access research. Because the more that people are able to access open access research, the more they'll use it, the more people understand that it's a viable and suitable way to be publishing their book research. And that can only increase people's willingness to publish in an open access format. In a sense, it's a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. That's not quite right. But a virtuous cycle, if you like, and it should hopefully increase the amount of content that people publish in open access. So it's just to give you a bit of a sense of how you can, from within Primo itself, access open access content. I'm just going to come back to my slides. Hopefully that was relatively straightforward and that people will be able to often do that themselves. In terms of other open access books, beyond what is available just within the Primo and University of Aberdeen collections, as I'm saying, there's just an ever-growing number of titles, more and more materials being published in this way, and the mandate that's expected to come in from the REF will be undoubtedly replicated in many different countries. So on an international perspective, we're just going to keep getting more and more open access content being published. Now, as I was showing you, some of the material will come from the traditional publishers. More and more, there are university presses like Aberdeen University Press that are being set up specifically with open access, either as their core reason for being or a large part of what it is that they're doing. But there are also lots of other initiatives that we'll come to in a second. Again, just to reiterate the point, there's quite a mix of approaches at the moment while people try and work out the best kind of financial model for how this will actually work. So in terms of traditional publishers, one that is particularly heavily placed and involved with this is JSTOR. I did a search earlier on, again, looking for stuff to do history and Vikings. And I was able to narrow it down to open access content. And again, you can see there are slightly older, slightly newer, but you would imagine, you know, it'll tend to be newer material. So here I'm getting a book chapter where I've actually come through and look at this. And I would just like you to note this punctum books. I will come back and discuss them a little bit later, but here you can see the different chapters that are available to access there. So if you were doing searches within JSTOR, they're doing a lot of work about trying to get material published in an open access format, and a huge international organization company, you know, with a very, very strong identity and brand, and it's great that they're doing so much work around open access. I'll come back here. Now, Springer, we subscribe to a resource called Springer Link, and actually it's part of a bigger organization, as is often the way within publishing. There's lots of buyouts and mergers. So currently Springer is part of what's called Springer Nature, and I actually was doing a bit of a search earlier on, and I was just trying to have a hunt and trying to narrow down exactly what materials were coming up. They're in a bit of a transition at the moment between their different search interfaces. So it's actually a little bit, no, it's not letting the search in that way. Not quite so clear from within that. They certainly are doing a lot of work encouraging academics to be publishing with them in an open access format. You know, there are different models, as I was saying, in terms of sometimes an institution like us will subscribe to the likes of Springer, and within that subscription, it might be that covers the cost of publishing. Other places might actually ask for a fee, a book processing charge. The model's always changing. It's about trying to make it as easy as possible for the academics to get the material published, while the publishers can still actually make money, but they're not short of making quite a lot of money. Another really good site worth looking up is Oxford Academic. If you were actually searching within, actually I meant to bring this one across. If you were hunting within Primo for it, if you actually look for something called UPSO, it's still listed as that, UPSO, but it has kind of transformed into Oxford Academic again. I've done a search in here and I've managed to bring up 345, and as you'll see, again, the ubiquitous open access symbols that Oxford University Press and partner presses that they work with are making lots of their content available in that digital open access format. So I'm just going to pop back out of here. Now, I just wanted to bring your attention, I was talking about the different university presses. Now, we've got the Cardiff University Press, London School of Economics Press, and also a very newly set up Scottish Universities Press. As I was saying earlier on, Aberdeen University Press has set up, Joanna will be able to give me the exact date for when that happened, but still very, very recently. But there's also another press that's been set up within Scotland with a lot of different Scottish universities come together to create one Scottish University Press. I don't believe they published anything yet, but there will be work and material coming from them. I believe the first book's due to be published in 2024. One site I do want to show you is University College London Press. It is, I understand it's been on the go since 2015. It's one of the most established of the university presses. And here I've just kind of come in and looked at their open access collection here. There'll be different ways in which I can narrow my subject area, or I could actually just run a search. Let me, early civilization and the American modern. Let's go and have a look at this. So the way that they're working is that you could buy the paperback, you could buy the hardback. But I'm hoping that I can actually bring up again. Isn't it wonderful when you try and do things live? Why is that not showing? Bear with me a second. Go and look at another one. Aha. No, it's not letting me in. I was in and I was looking at them before. Okay. I think I'll just move on from that. My apologies. But again, I suppose the important part of all the different resources and all the different sites we've been showing you, these are all publishers that are of good standing. Everything will have gone through a rigorous publishing process before it gets published. It's not just vanity publishers or people publishing things off the road back. These are all high quality, rigorously produced academic content. Just going to come back and this is another very well established Press White Rose, which is a kind of consortium of Leeds, Sheffield and York universities have come together. And I've just been in and been having a look in here earlier on. Let's say I was interested in oral origins of human connection. That looks fascinating. I could download it in different formats. Let me just go and download that. Save that. And there we go. I've got a 472-page book. Ridiculously how simple, but I could, if I had, perhaps I didn't use screen readers, and there are different formats in which you can download the book. But yeah, White Rose Press, very, very prestigious and excellent, and it's easier to download their materials than it is from UCL. Now, this is where, on this next section, this is where I find it's really, a lot of the really interesting work is getting done. If I actually, I'm just going to open up DOAB. We kind of looked at that very briefly earlier on. Again, powerful ways in which you can browse and search through materials. So let's, I'm just going to look for history, see what there is. It's going a little bit slow. I'm just going to click on a book. Okay, well that is, so there we go. Through. Select that. Project Muse is another great site with a lot of open access material. So I can download as EPUB or in different PDF chapter by chapter. Again, it's a fantastic resource. It's one of the best places that we've kind of pulled together and kind of conglomerated a lot of the material that is being published in this format. Come back and flick through again. A lot of these different sites are kind of interconnected. Open Library is certainly something worth looking at. I'm just going to come through now. Hathi Trust. This is a fantastic resource. Let me just bring this up. Now, there are certain materials that you do have to pay for, but they are more and more making a huge amount of content available in things that I can see in full view. I could narrow things down in multiple ways. Let's see, vast majority in English here. You can see we're going a great deal of historical material. So if that's what you're wanting to hunt down, it really is fantastic. Here we go. Reference studies in medieval history. If that's your bag, there you go. You could download the book, and in that sense, it's a facsimile sort of copy, but you could actually see it text-only view. That's letting you go. Actually, just page by page. There we go. All got slightly different ways in which they present the information. I go, okay, I could download it as a PDF, text, JPEG, TIFF. So it's a really powerful and excellent historical resource of ebooks. Let me just now. This was a fantastic site. I spent far too long looking at. Now this is called scholar-led. It's as you can see, scholar-led, not-for-profit, open access publisher that was formed in 2018. Really interesting model in that they're trying to do things differently from standard traditional publishers. I mentioned earlier on that Punctum Books, these are a selection of different presses that have come together to form scholar-led. I'm actually going to go and have a look at their site. Spontaneous Acts of Scholarly Combustion, which is quite a grand title. Let's go and start having a browse through here. You can narrow things down by topic area. Let's look at para-academia. So forthcoming, not out yet. Let's go and have a look at this. There we go. You could buy the print. You can pay a subscription and access the content. A lot of these, some of these places operate on a subscription basis. You know, people will be willing to put their money into these presses to keep them on the road and growing. But here, I'm allowed to just download the PDF. Here we go. That's open. I was telling you about again. So I think we'll open up in a new tab in a second. Here we go. I've got my 433-page book I could work my way through with very little effort. And Punctum Books are very catch your attention with a bonny picture of a cat. Always catch people's attention. You know, so they're looking for ways that if you can support them, they'll happily let you, in a sense, become part of the movement to make open access more of a reality, really. I'm conscious of the times, 9:48. Again, it's another collective that I would recommend people go and spend some time looking at. So in the future, as I was saying, this is only going to grow and improve as not only policy, like funder policies, but also legislation and generally the ethics of this will continue to push the drive to greater open access. As you can see, I started off from looking in Primo, but there's disparate places in terms of how you can aggregate all the different resources that are available in this format. There is work being done out there, the likes of the Directory of Open Access Books, but there are better finding tools needed. New models will continue to emerge. I think there'll probably be a lot more scholar-led, kind of bottom-up type models, certainly as people and academics begin to appreciate not only the moral value of it, but it increases the visibility of your research. And as younger generations move through their academic careers, they will undoubtedly be more open to the notion of publishing in an open access format. A really excellent source of information is a site called the Open Access Scholarly Publishing Association, chock full of information, and a really great place to start if you're wanting to begin to understand more about what is going on in this arena. Wonderful. There was one site that I saw yesterday that had a list. It was almost like a Wikipedia page, and it just had a list of open access publishers, and there was hundreds of them listed, and I think that's one of the pieces of work for the future, is how to bring all of that together to make it easier. In a sense, that's my job, is to help people find information, and it could be better. It's getting better, but will undoubtedly get better in the future. I'm now going to stop talking and sharing, because I'm conscious it's 10:02. I'm willing to answer any questions that anybody might have.